Prancing Gremlin from Stefan. Hello, Brennan, Paul, and all the other people that make Ghost Story Guys what it is. I have written previously about The Guy. I was so excited you played it on your episode right before you launched Talk Spooky to me. You inspired me to upload my stories. I just recorded this story last night and tagged the GSG and M&M channels. If it's okay, I would like to plug my YouTube channel, Negative Art Productions. It's very okay, Stefan. My story was about a spirit that would haunt the neighborhood I grew up in. The neighborhood is located in White Bear Lake, Minnesota. It was down the street from the actual lake itself and was a suburb built in the 1950s. Each yard was very large and always heavily wooded in the back. Nature surrounded me, and you could tell by the size of the trees and the land how old the area was. My neighborhood had an unsettling, electric energy. Even though it was beautiful, lush, and green, there was still a darker feel to the neighborhood than the other ones in town. I would notice after I started seeing the one main entity, I would also notice other things. Being at a doctor's visit when I was a teenager, I found out I needed glasses, as faraway objects were a blur. I had been seeing things that didn't make sense due to my vision being bad. I wouldn't ignore what I was seeing, but also didn't take much stock in it. Due to the fact that there was a rental house down the street with rotating tenants, I wouldn't always know every person in the neighborhood. When I realized what I was seeing wasn't from blurry vision, is when things got really unsettling. Around dusk, I would see, inconsistently in front yards, what I would think was a mailbox. Then it would hit me that, why would a mailbox be in the middle of the yard? I could see it from across the street about 30 feet away. I would see a 3 to 4 foot tall, dark, thin object. It would then start moving and changing shape slightly to be more creature-like. A skinny body with arms and legs to match the inhuman thin structure. As weird as this sounds, my eyes were now telling me I was seeing what looked like a taller version of the evil gremlin from the movie Gremlins. Or a Dobby-like creature from Harry Potter. I would always see this swaying type prancing movement after I was focusing in, almost like it was stuck in place, as it would never move away or toward me. When I realized it was not my bad vision, I would approach to get a better look. By the time I would get closer, the swaying would get more intense, and then the object would fade away into the darkness. There was almost an intelligence to it, disguising itself next to a mailbox at the end of a neighbor's yard. Then once I focused on it, the shape would change to more of a skinny, short black humanoid. It was just far enough away to not see clearly. Then, poof. It knew I saw it. It would do the sway motion, then disappeared when I got closer. I was out one night with a friend, and he saw it too. He thought it was my neighbor staring at us from the front yard. I asked him to describe it, and he said it looked like a neighbor kid or something, but really small and dancing. The motion and mischievous presence was perceived childlike by my friend, but to me always felt more taunting and mean-spirited. We got closer, and of course it disappeared. My friend was convinced, and never assumed I was lying about seeing things again. After a while, I stopped paying attention, as there was never any resolution or end. Over the years as an adult, I would see them from time to time visiting my parents' house. Staring across, looking at a small, gremlin-like creature swaying and taunting me in the dark. Another thing to note in most of my experience seeing things like this was the silence. They made zero noise, yet the feeling of energy you got from them was loud, if that makes sense. I have more stories I will continue to send in over time. I've heard stories on your show about what I have described, small little gremlin-like creatures interacting with people. I would love to hear what you think about this. Love the show, Stefan. P.S. I have only had a few people in the entire world pronounce my name right. Even after I tell people how to pronounce it, they get it wrong. But you two said it correctly. As someone said in your most recent episode, your show does keep getting better and better. Well, thank you, Stefan. I hope to God I'm saying it right now, but there's a lot of pressure there, Paul. Don't fuck it up, Store. That could be the subtitle of this show.
Yes, a return to White Bear Lake.
Yes, and gremlins.
Yes. How strange.
So are you familiar with other gremlin stories? Not necessarily from White Bear Lake, but just generally?
Yeah, there was one on the Modern Fairy Sightings podcast recently, which was quite unnerving.
Oh, I'm trying to think if I've heard that one.
It's the one where she got gremlins in her flat when she lived in London.
I don't think I've heard that one yet.
Yeah, and they kept sort of when she'd go to the toilet, they kept peering around the door at her.
Yikes.
Which I'd be scared if a normal person did that whilst I was in the toilet. Never mind a gremlin.
Yeah, supernatural and perverse is not a great combination. Like, start a podcast. Stop being weird on people.
Yeah. I think it's because I watched Ghoulies as a teenager.
Right.
And Ghoulies 2 is the one where somebody meets their end on the toilet, I believe.
Yes, I've never seen either of the Ghoulies films, but I remember the toilet cover art being iconic.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want an adult knockoff of Gremlins, they're perfect.
That was the 80s. It was the age of the knockoff of other things.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we had a whole slew of those, didn't we? Gremlins and Ghoulies and Critters.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yes, it's the birth of tiny bastards in horror films.
Puppet Master.
Yes. Demonic toys.
Yep, of course. I feel like there was another one. Maybe I was thinking the Demonic Toys Puppet Master crossover.
Child's Play.
Oh, yeah, of course. Apparently that show is in its 3rd season. I had no idea. I watched the 1st season. I liked it well enough, but I didn't realize there was a 2nd one.
No, I didn't at all.
Did you watch the 1st season?
No.
You're not a Chucky guy?
I'm trying to go back and watch them.
I don't know if I'd do that.
I mean, I watched Child's Play the other week and quite enjoyed it in a very silly way, especially the bit where you can clearly see it's a toddler in a suit running about. That makes me always makes me chuckle when he turns up at the psychiatric hospital to get, is it Andy? A kid in it? Is he called Andy?
Isn't that Toy Story? It might be Andy.
Anyway, and he turns up and you can just see his little character running up that fire escape to get him.
Some severely traumatized child.
Yeah. Who doesn't want a good guy's doll?
I got to tell you, man, I have a hard time being afraid of a villain I can punt. I mean, if there's a bunch of them, if we've got like a tribble situation going on, all right, fine, I get it. Strength in numbers. But if it's just one doll, I mean, okay, the knife is scary. But if you can just put the boots to him before he gets a knife in his hand, you're beating up a child at this point. Like, I understand the optics are not awesome, but it can't be that hard.
Yeah, I've forgotten how Child's Play essentially turns into the Terminator towards the end as well. I completely forgot about that bit.
Yeah. Yeah, does it ever.
Brilliant.
I know it got a lot of stick. I actually quite liked the remake. I thought it obviously it's not the original. It can never be, but no, I didn't mind it.
Yeah, I think the original still holds itself up to say it's, nearly 35 years old.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. Again, having the amazing Brad Dourif voice Chucky does help.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's no Puppet Master where one of the characters has a dead dog for most of the film, but it is what it is.
I mean, there's certain things in the Puppet Master series I would not need to see again. For example, like the Leech Lady.
Oh, she's ace.
Good Lord, that is the worst goddamn... Oh, I know. Folks, you can't see it in the video, but Paul just did a horrible thing. And, yeah. The Leech Lady, whatever the fuck her name was. Bad. It's
Leech.
A bad scene. Is it just Leech?
She's called Leech.
Oh, okay.
My friends call her Lee.
Well, I'm happy to know she's got people. I hope we never bump into each other at the grocery store. Good Lord. Just every time I watch those movies, that just grosses me out.
I'm more disturbed in the second one where that human woman doll adopts them all at the end of the
Why don't I remember this?
So the second one, the dolls try to resurrect... Oh, bloody hell, what's he called? Puppet Master.
Oh, yeah, something German.
And then he decides he wants to create a female...
Oh, no, Toulouse.
Yeah. Toulon,
that's it.
Toulon. Because the third one's called Toulon's Revenge, isn't it?
Yes, that's it.
He creates that life-size woman puppet that he wants to steal somebody's life spirit and put it in this doll so he can marry it. And they have that big thing, and then the female doll somehow becomes alive, and at the end she's driving along in that bloody camper van, pretending to be a children's entertainer or something.
I have seen this movie, and I have no recollection of any of this. I remember the second one being total cack, and maybe this is why it's kind of faded from my memory.
It's a very strange one. The first three are pretty good. They start to lose their way after the fourth one, but the third one's a work of genius. Puppets killing Nazis.
I mean, hey, any kind of Nazi killing is all right by me.
Yeah. So, yes. Anyway.
and just before we go back to Stefan's story, of course, Jerry, our composer, he worked on Puppet Master Dr. Death. And you want to talk about a guy, the only thing more horrifying than Puppet Master 2 is Jerry's story of working on Dr. Death. And he's been a little more public about it, so I can say that, yeah, he'd apparently, it was not full moon. It was, apparently Charles Band was great, but I guess there was some friction with someone else on the project, and it was a very bad experience. And from what I understand, it's one of those things where, like, yeah, you want to ruin your enthusiasm for something you love, work on it. But just briefly, Stefan's story kind of reminded me of when I spoke to James Salcedo for one of the Patreon bonus things. And actually, I think we might even have read some of his stuff on the main show. He was the one, he's got reduced vision, but when he saw the thing, he saw it clearly.
Yes. Yeah.
And funny enough, he actually just turned up on an episode of Where Did the Road Go? I hadn't heard from James in a long time, and then I heard him on there. And again, there's something very, very sinister about this notion that this thing is just sort of just on the fringes of your vision to the point where you almost can't quite make it out. And it seems... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, there's a few things like that where they're almost barely perceptible, and they're almost at the very edge of your vision, as though they're in some kind of different spectrum.
Yeah. Well, that was something Keel always used to say, right? He used to think that they somehow existed in a different spectrum of light.
Yeah, ultraviolet or the infrared.
Yeah. I mean, this sort of gives me pause, this one, right? Because I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I've been thinking about this notion of original inhabitants. Mm-hmm. I was listening to Strange Familiars today, and Tim had this guy on. He's had a bunch of different stories. Listen to the show, folks. But there was one he talked about where him and his brother both saw basically a building floating in the sky. And he said it looked kind of like, he described it as looking like the Shard in London. Mm-hmm. But it was just there, kind of in the sky between them suddenly, and then it was gone. And, we've talked a few times on the show about this notion of like a side world or a sort of a parallel world of people who keep an eye on us, or who at the very least are concerned about all the shenanigans we're getting up to over here. And I don't know, to hear that really brings me back to that notion. And I wonder if it's like, maybe there's different layers to it, right? Maybe there's, again, sort of this more like technocratic or more advanced civilization that's alongside us. And maybe there's also like a more primordial, like an earth spirit kind of thing. And it's sort of I don't know, it's a strange notion to imagine that we're stuck between those things.
I mean, to be fair, seeing buildings in the sky is not that unusual. It's known as is it a fate Morgana?
Okay.
It is a well-known phenomenon.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So is this like one of those things where there's a scientific explanation, or it's just something that has been reported?
It is some kind of reflection that finds itself appearing in the sky. So it basically looks like cities are in the clouds.
Interesting. I guess science is the word.
Yeah. I'm not sure. It is something to do with light and reflection.
Interesting. I had no idea. That
causes it. And it can travel a fair distance to it. It also can sometimes manifest as what look like boats floating in the air because of the light and the horizon. I'm sure it's a fate Morgana, but it is a known phenomenon.
Okay. So that could just be a very, very strange reflection.
Yeah. I mean, people have taken pictures of them.
Really? Okay.
Because they are that clear. I'm not sure if there's a lot, but I know that there are several reports that I've seen from China of people taking photos of what look like cities in the sky, and they're simply reflections from the ground. But I'm not sure what the exact conditions are that cause it. But it is a known phenomenon. I'm sure it's Fata Morgana.
Fata, yeah, F-A-T-A. We're back to Italy. Apparently that is the Italian. I realized you didn't see that thing I just read in my head. The term Fata Morgana is the Italian translation of Morgan the Fairy, Morgan Le Fay of Arthurian legend. These mirages are often seen in the Italian Strait of Messina and were described as fairy castles in the air or false land conjured by her magic. The optical phenomenon occurs because rays of light bend when they pass through air layers of different temperatures in a steep thermal inversion where an atmospheric duct is formed. I know what all those things are.
Mm-hmm.
In calm weather, a layer of significantly warmer air may rest over colder, dense air, forming an atmospheric duct, which I also know that is. Acts like a refracting lens, most commonly seen in polar regions, especially over large sheets of ice that have a uniform low temperature. It may, however, be observed in almost any area. That is fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And coincidentally, to sort of bring back to a conversation you and I were having earlier, the Strait of Messina, which is where it is seen, runs between Sicily and Calabria.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling you off air about a pretty good book that has a pretty bad audio presentation, and it is about a criminal organization that exists in that region. So we've come full circle, and we're only halfway through the show.
Indeed.
Thank you, Stefan, and keep the stories coming, my friend. Also, I didn't see the tag, so if we didn't like or respond or whatever, it just, I don't know, man. A lot of notifications. But we were not ignoring you on purpose, I promise.